Good morning. How's everyone feeling? Good. Welcome to Creative Mornings. So Muse is an interesting concept. We're all creatives. Our theme here, or motto, is everyone is creative. Everyone is welcome. To be like real for a second, I've been a little low energy. I think I mentioned before I'm a journalist by trade, so I am paid to follow this news cycle, and it's really exhausting. And I think all of us can relate. When you're busy and you have a lot of work to do, the first things that to go are self-care. You're like, okay, I do not have time to wake up early and run. I have time to sleep in and look at my phone. Over the past year, I started swimming and getting into the bay and really disconnecting from everything. I jump in the bay and I swim around for an hour, and it's only about a year later that I'm realizing how important that time is. And that time is for you to make for yourself. Because in the water, I'm not checking my phone. In the water, I'm not checking my email. I'm not feeling a phantom vibration in my butt, in my leg, in my bag. I'm just out there looking at nothing and maybe worried that I'm going to get eaten by a shark. Which is all to say, our speaker today has a lot of thoughts on the matter. Not sharks, but how to connect with that muse, how to connect with that sacred space inside of ourselves that we deny every time we pick up the phone because of buzz. Our speaker today is the co-founder of Sky Lab Creative. Skycar. Woo! Okay. Our speaker today is the co-founder of Skycar Creative. She has years and years of experience creating amazing visual work, but also years and years of experience hitting that creative roadblock, finding time for themselves to make space for the creative muse to come in. So, everyone please give a warm Creative Mornings Oakland welcome to Jane Selle Morgan.
Good morning. I love this topic. I love the topic of the muse because I find it to be ephemeral, unknowable, mysterious, and maybe a tiny bit annoying in that way. Because can we all agree when you're in a creative process, it can be difficult. Difficult like childbirth and trench warfare difficult. True? Yeah. So the idea of this muse that kind of comes along and brings a brilliant creative idea and your answers sounds really good. Good news, I have prepared a talk for you today where I'm going to explain exactly how creativity works, how to bring in the muse who's going to effortlessly bring you ideas from the other realms, and you're going to get thousands of new followers. Of course, I'm totally kidding. That is a joke. We are going to have a lively discussion about the muse, accompanied by a creature. And I just want to say I'm doing my best because this is a lot. This is a situation happening right here. But I think my muse brought it to keep me centered and not thinking too seriously about myself. And what I want to say about the muse today is my experience and my concept of it is that maybe it's about the relationship that you can have with this force. In fact, let's do something fun. Let's define it. So muse, of course, has the verb and the noun, and we're nouning today, but I have done a lot of verbing about this noun in the last few months. So the person or personified force who is the source of inspiration for a creative artist. I really like the idea of this force. You know, this sort of something that steps in and brings inspiration. So I believe the thing to do is to create a relationship with it. And here are some of the ways that we can start to think about relationships with, of course, with our people too, with our sweeties, with our kids, with our pets, with our spiritual whatevers. There's a certain way that we show up. We listen, especially with our kids. We listen. We develop trust with these people, with these potential entities, muses. I wanted to share a quote from Tom Robbins, who is one of my very favorite authors, largely because he's magical with words and they don't make sense, but then they totally make sense. Anyone else know Tom Robbins? Yeah, I love what he had to say about his muse. And I quote, "I show up to my writing room at 10 a.m. every morning without fail. Sometimes my muse sees fit to join me, and sometimes she doesn't. But she'll always know where I'll be. She doesn't have to drag, or she doesn't have to hunt in the taverns or drag the beach or the boulevards looking for me." That's really nice, right? Does anyone have that kind of ritual or relationship with their creative process daily? Oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I was convinced like 100 of you were gonna be like, totally, I do this every day. Oh man, well, I'll tell you how I do it. I set up really tough deadlines, like a sword over my head kind of deadlines, and it works really, really well for me. So let's see. A little bit about me and what I'm up to. Daniel mentioned what'd you call it, SkyCap? Sky Labs. That's fine, we're gonna go with that today. So 5 years ago, my business partner and I founded this company in the East Bay. We're in Richmond, which is Oakland adjacent. If you're not good at geography. And at that moment, when we founded the company, we had two great hopes. One is to be as fortunate as we've been, doing work for little tiny startups like Facebook and Google and Adobe. I thought that was funny, or that's cool, that's fine. No worries. Adobe, one of the founding sponsors here, is one of our clients we love very much. And the other great hope for the company was that we would also be able to do our own creative work and sort of projects that were like socially meaningful and relevant, little documentaries. What we've done so far is a lot of pieces that kind of explore magical realism. So when you come to skycap.tv, just kidding, skycar.tv later, you can take a look at some of those pieces. And we're in production on 2 of them right now, and I'm super excited about these. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects we're making right now. One is a documentary about a woman who is fighting injustice in the justice system. Not a small job. And the other day, we were in a creative meeting, and our lead producer, Andrea, was there, and my business partner, Aaron, was there. And I saw this crazy thing happen, y'all. I saw an idea land on Aaron's head. And the reason I knew something was about to happen, because I was looking at him and his head just started to light up. And I was like, what is gonna happen? And it looked a little bit like that. And everyone's taking a picture. Sorry, Aaron. Right at that moment, a brilliant idea came out of his mouth. And of course, I knew this talk was coming up in 2 months, and so I was unmercifully quizzing him. I'm like, what just happened? What was in your mind? What was the thought before that thought and the thought before that thought? Explain this, because apparently I'm going to in a few months. And what he said was that he felt like it was a function of the room, meaning that we had set an intention for a creative meeting, and that's why his muse saw fit to join him. So it was a beautiful moment, and one of our talented illustrators at Skycar, Mike, illustrated it this way. But that's what happened, right? Because, the icon of the light bulb, can we all agree, is a little cheesy? And we see it, we're like, yeah, creativity, the light. But that's what happened. He lit up. Okay, we'll be done, I promise. Okay, so as I said, there's sort of 3 ways I'm thinking about this relationship with the muse today. The first one was showing up. So we show up to a room that's a creative room, and perhaps the muse comes by. We show up to our writing room, at least they do, not us. That's fine, I love that about us. So then, our next trick was very much what Daniel had to say about perhaps setting things down, like the thing that I, put down out of my pocket, and listening and tuning in. Because as I said, I do think there is something a little bit magical and subtle that we can tune into and we can use as our source of inspiration. So a couple ways to listen. First of all, some quieting. I personally won't be getting in the bay, but that does sound very quiet. How many of you have a meditation practice? That's good, because I'm pretty sure it's the law in the Bay Area. Well done. And those of you who haven't raised your hand, don't worry, it's coming. So, I mean, that's just a really nice way to check out of the news cycle and to check out of the noise, and also to get better at hearing in a way. You're hearing your own breath or your mantra or however you do that thing, and you're listening. And I just want to reiterate the concept of the phone. It can be, well, this is an image that, again, Mike drew for us, and I find it to be so sweet. Do you know what is missing from this image? AirPods. She's listening, and she's present, and I love her. I want to hang out with you later. Sorry, it was just a thing that happened right there. So what I mean by that is we just develop that capacity, right? We get better at this listening. One of the ways that we're doing it in our family is we're doing screen-free Sundays. I know, it's going great. My 10-year-old loves it. And the way he lets us know that is by telling us we're terrible parents. So, let's see. This is my husband. He's a singer-songwriter. And as I was preparing this talk, he shared this really cool thing with me that I asked him, how do you get your songs? And he described this scene. 20 years I thought he was taking a nap. No, he's actually listening for a song. And that's my dog Domino. I just have to say that for Andrea. Our producer has a Twitter feed that's strictly Domino, so feel free to check that out. So we're listening, right? The other thing that happens, and maybe this is true for you, when you're in the shower, when you're driving, when you're kind of doing something else, you know how sometimes the ideas pop through at that point? It's kind of another kind of listening. And now that we love this icon, it happens even while you're avoiding those crazy texting drivers. Perhaps there's a spaciousness that opens up because your body and your busy mind is doing something else. And I think walking, especially if you're not looking at that thing and falling into fountains, is a really nice way to listen. And in fact, I just keep hearing example after example of people, like famous people, writers like Darwin and Dickens and Nietzsche, in fact, had this to say about walking. His only ideas gained from walking that have any worth. He's committed. But, Steve Jobs, apparently, if you work at Apple, maybe if you've been around a while, maybe you saw him wandering the campus. He and his lead designer would walk for hours and hours and hours, working at the creative for the designs for the things that are trying to steal our lives. Just kidding. Sorry. The Apple people are going to come and pound me after. So it's just a really good practice, and in fact, at one point in our Skycar career, walking actually saved us from losing a really big job. So we were about to do a comedy, which is my very favorite thing to do. And it was a video that was going to be for this tech company down in the South Bay, and we were maybe 3 or 4 days away from the shoot. And I made that fatal mistake of looking at my phone at 11 o'clock at night, and I saw the email that said video approval issues. Heart dropper. So I read some more. Blah, 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 legal doesn't blah, 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 pivot. Good stuff. So the next day, miraculously I slept, I have no idea how. The next day we show up to the shop and we circle up. Aaron, my creative partner, the writer was there, and we were like, let's not panic. We were totally panicking. And nobody's panicking here, because the truth was, in order to keep the shoot on that day, and it had to stay on that day because the deadline was hard, it was for an event or something, we had to produce a script in less than 7 hours. The thing that took 3 weeks, we now had 7 hours to do. So the good news was we have this habit of taking our creative brainstormings on walks sometimes. So we did that day. We walked up this giant hill. We are located in the lovely town of Point Richmond. So sweet. And we stood at the top and we looked at the view and we talked about a few ideas, and then we came back down the hill, and weirdly, magically, about halfway down the hill, I just had this knowingness, like I knew what it was. So I turned to the guys, the writer and the Aaron, and I was like, I have it. I mean, I'm not the writer, but should I? And they were like, you know, you, finger guns, go. You know, so it was crazy, y'all. I sat down, a half hour later, I had a script. And 20 minutes after that, it was approved. And granted, we like ground it out and for the weekend, trying to, you know, get it good. But the point is, we were able to save the shoot. And I totally attribute that to walking. There's a study out of Stanford that I get really excited about because they actually studied the effect of walking on creativity. And what they learned was that even if you're walking on a treadmill looking at a white wall, your creativity can bounce up by 60%. 60%. You don't even have to be outside in this magical garden. You can be looking at a wall. So, and I would add that we should open this up, and we open this up to movement as well, because some of us might not walk. In fact, Creative Mornings Oakland had this beautiful speaker here a few months ago, Mark Brew, the artistic director of Access Theater Dance Company. That guy is an incredible mover, an incredible creative, but he doesn't walk. So we can just say, how about movement? How about the movement of the body, the movement of the mind? And again, probably putting down the thing that we keep always, and we go home when we forget it. That thing shall not be named. It's become Voldemort. Okay, so here's a fun thing, y'all. Daniel might have alluded to this, that we are gonna have, it's kind of an experimental day. Not only were we going to be outside, but now we're inside. Now we're gonna go back outside. So we're going to experiment with this idea that I gave you, which is we're gonna take a walk. And y'all are like, are you serious? It was so hard to get the seat. But we have volunteers in here. We're all going to watch your stuff. So we're going to take about 5 minutes, and right around this wall, there's doors out to this beautiful garden. And before we go, what I want you to do is just take a second. Maybe close your eyes, maybe not. Just think of something that you're working with, some kind of creative problem or some kind of thing that you're wishing you had a little help from a magical muse. And then you can go take it for a walk. Are you in?
Yeah.
You're not looking. Okay, you're in. Okay, great. Okay, everybody up. See you in 5 minutes. Did anyone get inspired? Did anyone have an experience they want to share? I see a hand in the back. Go ahead. Can you?
Yeah, so my creative challenge is Halloween costume for my 14 and 17-year-old.
She's saying costumes for her 14 and 17-year-olds.
The gauntlet was thrown and down, and I had to try to figure out how to make gelfling ears. And I was inspired. I have a plan now.
Yay! The ears have been surmised from the muse. I love that. Anyone else want to share their creative experience? Hi.
I love the garden. I was moved by it, and I came to the large pignon containers and saw that it was dead. And I was thinking of a really difficult relationship I have with my 50-year-old daughter, and that was what was on my mind. And I thought, oh yes, things die, and maybe they have to go. And then I walked around to the other side of the pignon tree, and there was a little bit of green. And it makes me cry, because I think that's what my relationship has been like. I have to find that little piece of green where it's still alive, and it doesn't need to die. So.
Beautiful. Well done, everybody. That was a fun experiment. So far we have done some showing up, and thank you for showing up again. And we've done some listening. And now we're going to talk about trust. And so, again, I feel like the muse is such a wacky topic that you can really take it in any way. It could be the muse that is you, that is your internal sort of voice that brings creativity. And for me, it's a little bit more like of a magical feeling. Like I know when my muse is afoot, when there's like sort of chills in my body, or I just weirdly wacky coincidences convince me that the muse is happening. So I want to tell you a story. I have, as I said, Skycar Creative is based in Richmond, Point Richmond, and we're on Washington Avenue. And several years ago, this really incredible thing started to happen, and these gorgeous, tiny fairy houses started to appear along the way. And almost immediately, I thought, someone should make a film about these fairy houses. We should make a film about these fairy houses. And so I immediately went back to the team at Skycar, and they were like totally down for this to be one of our original content pieces. And then the artistic block hit, and I went into some kind of weird panic because I had discerned who was the person behind these beautiful little fairy houses, and he keeps himself a little behind. He doesn't want them to be about him. He wants them to be about community art and inspiring people to just see the world differently, which is like the best thesis statement there is. And so, but I knew who he was. He was this comic book artist illustrator, and I'd seen him at the coffee shop. He had a blue beard, and I just got intimidated. I was like, I can't walk up to him. I can't do it. I can't approach him. No idea why. I'm clearly an outgoing individual. Just had no capacity. So every week we would have our meeting, we would talk through all of our projects, and it would come up, and I go, you know what? This is just one little glimpse into one of the fairy houses. He literally creates a whole world inside, like what they're having for lunch. This is for an artist who loves cats. So, there's actually tours that have begun in Point Richmond for these things. They're incredible. So anyway, back to me. What happened was we were in these meetings and people go, how's it going for the film? And I would be like, totally, it's gonna work. And I had this brilliant idea, which is I am going to write a letter to him, and I'm gonna put it in the fairy mailbox. And all I need is a tiny, tiny piece of stationery and a tiny, tiny pen. And then every week, how's it going? I haven't found the stationery yet. The next week, still they don't sell it at the corner store. So it got really embarrassing fast. And a lot of time went by. And then something magical happened, which is we happen to have this consultant who comes and works with us, my business partner and I, where we think about big picture stuff for the company, business strategy. That's how I would say the meeting goes. And it's kind of like an all-day thing, and she asked, how's it going with these original content pieces? And I was so embarrassed to tell her that, I hadn't written the letter. And she asked two really important questions at that point, which I found very moving. The first one was, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I was like, he can say no. I think that really was my read. And then the next thing was, she asked another question, which was, well, wouldn't you make another film? Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly, of course, obviously. So anyway, so she said, okay, here's the thing. Y'all just go for a walk. True story. I'm not making it up. It just happens to be a theme for today. And just wander through the neighborhood and come back here, and we'll continue on with the day and whatnot. So great, so we're walking, Aaron goes that way, I'm walking this way, and I don't even know which way I'm going. I'm lost in Point Richmond, which is super easy to do. And I took a left, and I took another left, and I look down Washington Avenue, and who do I see? Fairy house guy. And I'm panicking at that point. And he's doing a gardening project. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a choice. This would be a good excuse not to talk to him. But I'm not going to take it. I'm going to step in. Because I just knew that I knew I didn't have a choice, right? So I get up the guts, I walk up to him, and I'm like, excuse me. He's blowing leaves. Hi. Finally, I explained, so I had to step into the leaves. And God bless him, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to blow leaves on you. And I was like, no, we're good, it's good. And so I finally said, hey, we're this film company, we want to make a film about you. And he said, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, I would love that. I was like, really? Could you make it a little harder? I've been at Block for 6 months. So anyway, that was the beginning. That was a year ago. And actually, we have almost completed it. That moment, you know, when the stars align and when the Muse shows up and you're pushed to take another left on Washington Avenue, those coincidences, that's the stuff, right? That's when you know that you're in it and you're gonna, I'm gonna say it, and you're gonna win it. That is what would happen. I love this quote from Goethe. This boldness has genius, power, magic in it. And then this kind of goes on per the internet, only engage and the mind grows heated, begin and the work will be completed a year later or 10 years later. But that's the feeling. And I sort of wonder if there isn't a muse that you get to have the ideas come from, but that also shows up specifically for a project. So this project has had a really big helping hand, largely from the fairies and the magical guy we're making it about. I wanted to celebrate another dancer, Martha Graham. This is her quote. There is a vitality, a life force, and energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all of time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. Perhaps there's some responsibility. And it goes back to the idea of trust, that relationship that you're building. So when you say yes, and you have to keep saying yes, even though things get really weird, the project has its own life. So let me share the trailer. This is what we're about to ship this 8-minute film about the fairy houses out to, it's already gone out to one film festival, so we're hoping to start a film festival run, but here's the trailer that we made. And I just want to add that, of course, there's this huge team of amazing people at Skycar who are behind it. Here we go.
I believe things can exist because we want them to. If we want happiness, we find happiness. If we're cynical, we can find cynicism. If there's love, we can look for love. We can always go against those things, but if you truly look for it and you're open to finding it, it might just change a part of your life.
In that film, if you notice, there was a little letter that that little boy opened that said, "Dear human in a green sweater." Did you happen to catch that? So that little human is the 10-year-old. He's my son, Graham. And this really happened, you guys. Producer Danielle and my family and I were doing a scout, going up the hill, trying to figure out which of the 23 of the houses we were going to film. And he happened to be wearing a green sweater, and he opened that letter, and it said, "Dear human in a green sweater." We were like, what is happening? Walk away. So anyway, I really felt that really sweet wink or nudge or just you got it, friends kind of feeling from the universe on that one. So anyway, I certainly hope this has been helpful, just with a little bit of listening and showing up and trusting that you too can have a relationship with a muse of your own understanding. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What was that bit about listening? I missed that.